Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today I'm going to show off the, in my opinion, best way to scale any bow hit skill in the game currently, accuracy stacking. First up, I definitely have a soft spot for Tornado Shot. Back in the days, I used to play nothing else since the crazy clear speed paired with great single target made it a blast to play until it got nerfed both directly and indirectly several times. After that, you could still make it work with a ton of currency, but only with the help of some of the more broken interactions that GGG overlooked every league, like Herald or Aura stacking, or even deck stacking during its glory days. This league's version of that broken interaction is accuracy stacking. If you're a bow guy like me, chances are you saw some of the Ballista accuracy stackers, opened the POB and thought to yourself, this scaling looks ridiculous, but at the end of the day, it's Ballistas. For me personally, Ballistas just don't have the clear speed or survivability I'm looking for, no matter the damage, and their clunkiness is only exacerbated by them being placed in melee range only ever since the Ballista rework happened. So I did what any sensible bow player would do, just slap some Tornado Shot on. Thankfully, MB Extreme already made a similar version last league, which had some pathing problems that I solved with one of the new support gems, more projectile speed scaling, the right cluster jewels, and some clever pathing on the passive tree. Just to point this out though, I don't know if MB was the one who made the build first, it was just the first time I was introduced to the idea, and it just evolved from there. This build was mostly made with simulacrum runs or solo 5-way farming in mind, but it's a great mapper as well, since your Mirage Archer will basically do all the work, and, well, your Tornado Shot. Overall, I would call it more of an all-rounder build at this point. All the footage is recorded without Headhunter, and even without, as you might have picked up in the footage already, it's sometimes hard to even see simulacrum bosses before they die if you're not actively looking for them at the minimap. I'm pointing this out because the damage you're seeing currently is complete overkill for basically anything you can encounter in the game, so even though this build is not exactly budget friendly, I started at around 1/5 of the damage I currently have, and other than boss kill time and Herald of Ice explosion consistency, you will see almost no difference. So if you like the playstyle, definitely give it a go. With that being said, let's get into the build guide. Alright, so first up, let's just go over what exactly accuracy stacking is, right? Because you might not be familiar with the Ballista builds. So I'll just go over what exactly scales accuracy and why we would go accuracy over something like a deck stacker or just good old-fashioned normal scaling. So yeah, so it all started with this base here in Ritual League. A lot of you guys will be familiar with it already. A lot of Ballista builds use this. It gives you 1 to 6 added lightning damage per 200 accuracy. Right now I have around about 87k accuracy, so you can basically imagine just how crazy that gets. So it basically makes it so every flat damage you get outside of this is completely useless. All you want is accuracy. So also on top, these gloves here also make it so your accuracy scales your crit. So 2% increased attack critical strike chance per 200 accuracy. This basically gets me to like 80-90% crit. I put on the Diamond Flask, but honestly, it's not even that good. Maybe if I get like absolutely GG gear, if I recraft my amulet, I'll get to a 100 completely without Diamond Flask. These gloves are crazy. Obscurantis, just 1% increased projectile attack damage per 200 accuracy. There's more of these mods on the other two items, but basically this means that also your percentage damage is completely filled out by accuracy. Same with the bow. The bow has 1% increased projectile damage per 200 accuracy, just as the Obscurantis. These obviously stack. So this bow has other stats. We'll go over the items in particular in a second, but I just wanted to show what exactly accuracy does. So we already have 2% now increased projectile damage per 200 accuracy. And on top of that, we have divergent additional accuracy support. This quality here gives you 4% increased attack damage per 1000 accuracy, which also scales on top of these. So we will have a shit ton of increased damage from accuracy. We will have a shit ton of increased crit from accuracy, and we will have a shit ton of added lightning damage. So To round this one up, we're a Juggernaut. Basically, what we're going to do is the first points you want is Undeniable, and this just rounds out the build because now we also get attack speed per accuracy, and 1% increase per attack speed per 150 accuracy. This build has like 14 attacks per second just because of this node. This node is like 400% more damage or something for us, and it is the main reason this build actually works, and we get an insane amounts of life gain on hit, and we basically don't even have to care about leech or anything. So basically, I'll just go over the Ascendancy real quick here because I'm just here. Undeniable is basically what makes this build tick. It is the reason you can basically only go Juggernaut, which does, in a sense, kind of shoehorn you in. You can't really go for crazy movement speed with Raider or whatever, but we will talk about that in the boot section because most of your movement speed will come from your boots. So Unstoppable is actually really underrated. I'm as a softcore player, I'm not really playing a lot of Juggernauts, but this node, I just kind of saw how many slowing effects are in the game right now. It's kind of crazy. Not being able to, just having the cannot be stunned, having the increased movement speed, it is a great node and definitely what I would take second here. Then we have Unflinching and Unrelenting just to round out the build. It makes us be able to take a little bit less defense elsewhere because obviously in softcore we're all about maxing our damage, but these make us actually quite tanky. And when we have all the gear on, we're at 6k life with these endurance charges, with acro, phase acro, and some other stuff, endurance charges. So in total, we're actually quite tanky. I mean, I leveled from, I think, 97 to 100 in simulacrums. So that should basically tell you everything you need to know. Now, as for items, let's just go over them. First up, the boots. Obviously, they have to be either Stormrider. There's two other bases. I forgot the names, but you can look them up on the wiki. They all have the same implicit. It's just different evasion rating, which doesn't matter. You can take whatever you want from these. Obviously, high item level would be preferable. And basically, I just stacked on top of each other all the movement speed I could find since we're really lacking movement speed since we're a Juggernaut. This build isn't really completely made for mapping, but with these boots, the build just performs like any other build would in terms of movement speed, even faster since you don't really have to cast. You're attacking 14 times per second, and you have Mirage Archer, so you're kind of just tapping. You don't even see the animation of the attack, and your Mirage Archer will basically do the rest, depending on how good your gear is, obviously. But yeah, we have Elusive, Tailwind, we have Onslaught, we have Veiled Movement Speed in a prefix, and Movement Speed if you haven't been hit recently. If you want to know how to make these boots, I'll leave a link down in the description. I actually made these from a guy called Elisar. He made a YouTube guide on how to make these. It's really easy to follow, but I will also go over it in my separate crafting video, which I will make. But yeah, basically these boots, completely mandatory and just absolutely crazy. You don't have to have these kind of boots only if you're mapping. You want to max out your movement speed. If you're just doing simulacrums or even 5-ways, it's not that important. It's not that big of a deal. And I will also go over budget options in the crafting section. Next up, Oscarms. These are really, really nice, obviously, because they scale our crit per accuracy, but also what they do is they give us Assassin's Mark on hit, which is really important since both our ring slots will be taken for a unique ring that we will go over in a second. So we can't really go for a Shaper ring with S-Mark. So that's just really, really nice. Implicit +1 max frenzy charge is really, really strong, and they aren't that expensive. So just go for one of those if you can afford them. Otherwise, just buy the normal gloves for 1C, whatever you want. Obscurantis. Right now, the Tornado Shot implicit Obscurantis go for like 50 to 70C, depending on who's online. With Helmet Chance, it's always a problem because people might just not be online. But basically, the Tornado Shot fires an additional secondary projectile is mandatory, kind of, as most of you guys will know if you've ever played Tornado Shot. It's a game changer. Then next up, the bow. This bow looks extremely impressive because I actually managed to hit T1 accuracy in the suffix, which is completely not needed. It's actually not even that good because, as you see, we didn't get attack speed, which I actually wanted. I wanted either Shaper attack speed, Elder attack speed, or T1, T2 attack speed, which you can actually get deterministically with Harvest Crafting. But I just managed to magically hit T1 accuracy, so I was like, all right, finished. I don't even care. But attack speed would also be better because you get even more life gain on hit. So this might look impressive, and it is obviously expensive, especially the socketed skills deal 20% more attack damage is pretty hard to craft, but it's actually not that big of a deal. I'll go over it in the crafting session, but basically what's very important is the 1% increase per proj damage per 200 accuracy, as always, and then you fuse that with, you awaken or orb that with the maximum frenzy charges in the suffix slot, and everything just goes from there. The LE pen is actually from a veiled mod, so you can also deterministically get that. Like I said, all of these mods are really easy to get, other than the socketed skills deal 20% more attack damage. So you can save like 30x on this bow if you just leave out that one mod. So yeah, like I said, I will go over it in detail. All right, so next up, let's go over the precursor emblems. Now, these are the reason I was a little bit hesitant to make this video, even because these are a bitch to get. These are really annoying to get, and depending on how popular certain builds are, these are really, really expensive, or you can get them kinda cheap-ish. Now, forget this ring here. This is basically the GG. This is like unobtainable. I didn't even put it in my POB. That's how absolutely outrageous this ring is. But basically what you have here is you have a vendor recipe of the 3 Delve bosses. They drop certain unique rings. I will put down a link in the description down below so you know how to make them. But basically you can hit special frenzy charge related buffs or mods on there. For example, as you see here, the 0.3 of life per second per frenzy charges, which is kind of a brick. But then we have 2 times the increased accuracy rating per frenzy charge, which is 10% each. And then with abrasive catalysts, which are modify attack stuff, you get to 24% accuracy per frenzy charge. So with us having 8 frenzy charges, that's around about 200% increased accuracy rating, which is completely outrageous. These rings are just crazy. Now, these are kind of hard to afford. I won't deny it. These are really annoying to get. But if you get even one of the accuracy mods, which as of this recording cost like 1x, 2 of these cost like, I don't know, it depends who's online, but like 30, 40x or something. You can start out with 1, and you can even get the 2 other mods to not be bricks. So you can get like dodge, you can get movement speed, all kinds of good stuff. So don't, like, the accuracy rating is by far the most important role, but don't go out and be sad because you can't afford the 2-time mod. Just go for something else in the meantime. Now, this one is an anomaly. I've played this build to 100 without this ring. I just saved up and bought it for, I don't even want to disclose how much. It was way too much. But basically, this hit 3 times the accuracy mod, which is kind of impossible. I've never seen something like this. I didn't even know it was possible. I wouldn't ever dare to put it in my POB even when I started the build. So it happened, it's there, but yeah, completely unnecessary. And I mean, this build, as I already talked about, has way too much damage. It's really hard to focus on defenses just because of where we are in the tree and what kind of gear we need. So you kind of have a lot of overkill damage, which also makes it a little bit more budget friendly, because you can start at like 2-3 mil DPS and work your way up to where I'm like right now with like 10.7 mil DPS per projectile, obviously. But yeah, so let's continue. The quiver is really important for one single stat, and that is 7% chance to gain a frenzy charge on crit strike. As we already talked about, these are really important, so we want to have a constant source of getting frenzy charges. And if you're just running Blood Rage, that will help for mapping, sure, but against bosses you also want to have them up always, because that's like at least half of your damage depending on how good your rings are. Now, the suffixes are not that hard to make. I hit T1 proj speed with with the essence accuracy, and then you just veil on the frenzy charge on crit strike for the suffix. You want to do this on a shaper base because later you have the option to get +1 arrow with harvest crafting, which I will explain. The T1 life was completely random and just really lucky of me, but honestly, the wed, as we talked about, is completely useless. It's like I think not even 1% more damage in this build. So you can also just craft on life and forget about the third prefix. But yeah, it's really important to get this veiled craft because 7% chance to gain frenzy charge on crit will basically mean you always have full frenzy charges. And we don't need to run blood rage, so we're not degenning, which is also something I really, really like. Now, other than that, obviously, if you have a headhunter, go ahead, run it. But for the showcases of this build, I was basically running this Darkness Enthroned, which costs like 1C. I farmed the enchant myself. If you want to buy it, it costs like 1 or 2x, which is outrageous. Just if you have a good character, farm them yourself. Otherwise, just ignore it. I don't know. But basically, we're just running this one for budget reasons, so easy peasy. And last but not least, the Replica Shroud of the Lightless. Now, this one is extremely important and why I wouldn't ever call this a budget build or budget-friendly build, because if you replace this with a Chaos, you will basically half your damage. With the way that jewels are set up, giving you a crap ton of flat accuracy rating and crit multi, which you're lacking severely because of where you are. Also life, more lightning damage. This is just absolutely premium. And if you cannot get one, I would probably not recommend this build. This is the item I would buy first and then work your way up to certain other items. But as of right now, these are quite expensive at like 28x. So as I said before, you want to have around about 40 to 50x liquid for this build to get it off the ground. And then you can just kind of build on it over time. So as for jewels, I will just go over them real quick so we don't have to do it again. I have the most important roles on here is the flat accuracy is by far the most important role. Nothing else really matters if you don't have this. And if you search for jewels, search for 121 or higher accuracy rating. Basically, it's a very high range, as you can see. So sometimes you can grab like 130 accuracy rating jewels, just throw 1 or 2 divines on them, and they are really, really good. Other than that, max life, depending on how tanky you like to be, I really don't like dying. So I always want to go for a life roll that's at least decent. And crit multi, which is also really, really important. We don't get a lot of crit multi. As we said, we have a lot of uniques here, which kind of... we also went for proc speed on the quiver, so it's just really, really hard to get crit multi overall. So I really like to get it from jewels, but basically this would be the perfect jewel. Obviously the rolls are kind of weak. This is only T4, I think, lightning damage. The lightning damage is really not that important. You already get so much lightning damage from accuracy itself that the most important mods is life, crit, multi, accuracy rating. If you can get these 3, the rest doesn't matter. Also, we're not really lightning specific, as I will point out. So the added lightning damage is not important. It's just about any LE damage, basically. So let's put them in here. You can do some other stuff here. Obviously, if you need int, like I do, you just go for the int here. If I would probably recommend getting 1 blind jewel, because at the rate you're attacking, everything will be permanently blinded with just 1 single mod on 1 jewel. So to get this on, we would do this. We have the if you're wondering, we have the quality here to be int instead of evasion and energy shield, so we get an extra 15 int. That's why I had to do the swap. But yeah, now lastly for the amulet, I have a really, really good synthesis implicit here. It's not really needed. It's also really, really hard to get. You can also replace this just with a lapis amulet. Lapis is a really, really good base. As you can see, I tried crafting this one with T0 crit multi, and I just never hit T1 accuracy in like 500 tries, which is kind of impossible. I don't know what happened. I just kind of stopped at some point. I think it should on average take like 80, 90 tries. I just gave up at some point because I got tired of buying them. But basically I just settled with this. Don't forget that the elemental damage with attack skills looks really good, but in this build, like we said, with how much percentage damage scaling we already have, it's like a drop in the bucket. It doesn't really do anything. As for the endurance charge mod, it's also crap, so this is just kind of a botched experiment. I will recraft it later, but what you would want is you definitely want high life, as in this one you want, if you can, the deafening essence crit multi, but you can also just buy one with crit multi, accuracy, high life. Int base would be nice because this build is very int starved. You can actually get a lot out of that, and then maybe have a prefix open to craft projectile speed and projectile damage, or if you want to get very, very min-maxed, you can also unveil the projectile speed, projectile damage. Then it will be a little bit more, but for the start, I would say crit multi, accuracy, life, and then have a prefix open for projectile speed, projectile damage hybrid. All right, next the gem setup. Basically, Tornado Shot is pretty obvious here. It doesn't matter whether you go Divergent, whether you go the normal one. You're already completely saturated of all the increased damage or increased attack speed you want, so it does not matter. Go with whatever. I just bought the first 21, 23 I saw. Then Anomalous Mirage Archer. This is actually not 13% on accident. So as you see, let's first talk about the additional accuracy. That's probably easier. This gives us 4% increased attack damage per 1,000 accuracy. Now, that's at 20 quality, and at 30 quality, as you see, this goes to 6% attack damage, which is also the reason we have the +7 quality of socketed gems on our bow. So this kind of combines very nicely, but it also means that our Anomalous Mirage Archer would shoot over the quality we want for it. So basically, as you see here, per 10 quality, you get one additional Mirage Archer projectile, but it also lasts 1 second less, which is kind of annoying. But what we settled for is we want exactly 20 quality, which basically halves its duration to 2 seconds, and you don't want it to shoot over. So this gives us 7 quality. So if I had a 20 quality here, this would shoot over and only reduce our duration without giving us anything. So you either want to have this at 13%, or you just go for the normal Mirage Archer. I wanted this for some extra damage, but if you want to have it 4 seconds long, I don't mind tapping every 2 seconds. You can tap every 4 seconds, so whatever you want. It's not mandatory, but just know that if you have this craft here, you only want this at 13%. Now, that being said, if you don't have a 2023 additional accuracy Divergent, which is kind of expensive right now, all you do is you don't craft the quality and instead go for a lightning damage as extra chaos damage to craft. I think it goes up to like 16%. So yeah, not that big of a deal. You put that in there. Woke GMP, as always, woke gems are not mandatory. Same with Wed or elemental damage with attacks. And then you have the big star in this build, which basically makes this viable. So the mana cost in this build is outrageous. You have so many attacks per second. I tried make it work with mana gain on hit. It's impossible. It would either require you to have way too many jewel suffixes, or it's just straight up, it's just not very nice to play. Let's just say that. If you don't hit for 1 or 2 attacks, you're out of mana. You have to like hope to regain the mana or like auto attack for a bit. It's super annoying. You would probably have to go Blood Magic if you don't want to go life tap. But since this release, this league, this has been a huge game changer for this build. I think MB doesn't have it in his build because he's in Harvest, obviously. But I'm sure you would agree that this is an absolute superstar in this build. Life tap, no-brainer, just absolutely makes the build. Next up, some other setups. Our aura setup is basically we have Enlighten, Anomalous Herald of Ice. It gives us AoE, which is nice. You don't really need the cold damage, so I went for Anomalous. But yeah, Herald of Ice, as we already talked about, Anomalous Precision. Now, this one is basically 10% reduced reservation. You don't actually need it, as you will see. Just go for any Precision, 21 if you can. And then Purity of Fire is just to kind of ease out our fire res, but also at the same time, since we're not ailment immune, it's nice to be a little bit stronger against ignites, because they can get annoying, especially since we're doing simulacrums, which have a lot of fiery ground effect stuff or explosions that will ignite you. So for that, Purity of Fire is really nice. You don't need this if you have other kind of resistances. You can replace this with a flesh and stone. You can replace it with any other purity. You can even replace it with a purity of elements. Maybe you have like a random mod on your Watcher's Eye that you can enable. Just go with whatever. But then we also have, as the last aura, we have Anomalous Vitality. This is basically just here, so we get the life gain on hit from a Watcher's Eye, which is really nice. And then we have Anomalous Warbanner, which is also not, both are not enlightened because we simply don't need it and we don't have the gem space for it. I really prefer Dash to Flame Dash in a bow build. I go Dash Anomalous Second Wind. It's worth the extra gem slot, in my opinion. If you're more of a Flame Dash guy, go for it. You can slot in whatever you want. And at the end, I have a cast when damage taken set up with Summon Ice Golem. It's actually a level 20 cast when damage taken. Ice Golem is basically always up. Just be careful not to buy 21 gems if you don't also have a 21 cast when damage taken, basically. But yeah, you also have Anomalous Steel Skin for a little bit more survivability. And I have Anomalous Wave of Conviction for a -15 to res against bosses. It's nice. We don't have a lot of pen, so yeah. All right, so let's quickly go over the passive tree here. Obviously, you're a Juggernaut, so you start here. Everything accuracy related on the tree is really, really important. So we're talking versatility, we're talking Eagle Eye, we're talking Weathered Hunter, Acuity. Everything related to accuracy is absolute priority. So don't leave any of those out. These are not your usual damage scaling where you like get 3% more damage per node. No. These 3 nodes, for example, are like 16% more damage. These 2 nodes are like 10 or more percent more damage. These also give us LERS, which is really important. I think the weakest damage nodes are these 3, so they're kind of replaceable, but everything else I really wouldn't touch ever. Now, as you can see here, we have some weird, unique jewel setup here, and that's basically just Might of the Meek comboed with Unnatural Instinct. Might of the Meek makes it so all the small nodes in its radius get buffed by 50%, and Unnatural Instinct allocates all the nodes in this region. So basically, where these two overlap, all of these are allocated and get the buff from this. So we're talking buffed movement speed, we're talking buffed attack speed here, buffed accuracy rating, which is the big one, and then we're also buffing all the life nodes here from 5 to 7%. So pretty huge overall. As for implicits, you want 1 jewel with Corrupted Blood immunity, which is pretty easy since we're running quite a bit of unique jewels, but you don't even need Hindered, because as you can see here, Juggernaut already takes care of slows for us. Other than that, maybe get some LE pen somewhere. It's actually really nice, but not necessary at all. Transcendent Spirit, this one's huge. As you can see when I hover over it, it reduces our movement speed by like 3%, which is negligible, but it gives us 750 accuracy rating. It's obviously, on this tree, it's unfortunately only a one-off, but here we can really well utilize it because there's so much dex we're not pathing through. But yeah, basically, so Transcendent Spirit, highly recommended. Now, when we go down here, Wind Dancer is a really, really strong defensive node. Would always grab that because you're also here anyways. Point Blank, really, really nice for single target damage. Now, if you're only farming maps, you can remove this if you want, but honestly, you won't even see that it's there. It's just really, really nice against bosses, especially if you're doing Simulacrum. Now, our cluster jewels are basically, none of these nodes matter. It's all about Snowstorm. That's the big boy here. That's what makes us do a lot of cold damage. So our Herald of Ice actually always shatters. So we get Corpse Destruction. It's just really, really nice. You don't need this setup. You don't need Herald of Ice. You can replace it for something else entirely. I just really like Corpse Destruction, and I really like just getting the Stranglers popped. It's a really, really nice way to scale the build as well. It's basically like 8% more damage since all we're doing is lightning damage. So yeah, overall a really nice setup. Then anything else interesting here? Oh yeah, we have a Thread of Hope here, which is kind of a tech. We have Piercing Shots, which is our clear. I tried Chain, but since we only have one setup, and that's our bow, since we're running, we don't have like a barrage single target setup or anything. So running Chain in our main setup is just kind of feels wrong. and I actually removed it after a time. I had Woke Chain first. I actually removed it and just got piercing shots, and I was doing double damage, obviously, since now we don't have the less multiplier anymore, and it was more than enough. Now, I usually just go for a Legion test if I want to know if I need Chain or not, but the 2 piercing, actually good. If you want to know what a Legion test is, basically you look if you can clear a Legion efficiently, and with Mirage Archer, you really don't need Chain at all. It's cute, but it's complete overkill. And it costs you like half of your damage, whereas here you just have a really clever trick to get +2 pierce, you're done. Mirage Archer, +2 pierce, all you need. You also get King of the Hill, which is not mandatory, I will just say. 80% crit on other builds is huge. On this build, you get a ton of increased crit from Oscarm, so this is barely even worth your time. I don't know. You can remove it if you don't like the knockback, is what I'm saying. You have point blank, so it's kind of anti-synergy. I could even remove it if I wanted to. I just have it here. It's fine. It's whatever. Master Fletcher, huge accuracy, arrow speed, which is basically proc speed for tornado shot, and damage. Same here, aspect of the eagle, accuracy, movement speed, life. Just a really, really nice combo. And I don't even have a corrupt here, which I might get at some point, but yeah. Then acro, face acro, absolutely mandatory for this build and for any build in general. Also, you see we're taking all the frenzy charges, and the last frenzy charge here, where we don't want to really path, we have anointed on our amulet. So yeah. Also, something I forgot to mention is we have 2 split personalities here with accuracy and flat life. These aren't actually that important. As you can see, they do basically what Searching Eye Jewels would do. They're round about the same. They have a little bit more life, which is nice. But depending on how expensive they are, which always depends on which builds are in, you can also just replace this with a Searching Eye Jewel. But if you can get these, grab these for a good price, get them. Both here are better than up here, so yeah. So that's basically it for the build guide. If you like what you saw, a sub and a like go a long way. If you want to see more, I already have some build guides lined up. I have efficiency and currency guides that I want to release. So just tune in next time, and yeah, let's see where this goes. I hope I get better at this stuff. I hope I ramble less next time. So yeah, thanks for watching, and since I don't have a slogan, see you next time.